The Commodore 64 was a lot more than an arcade powerhouse. It was a memory machine. Sure, the games and type-ins were great, but the best memories? Those came from sitting beside a good friend or a sibling, sharing snacks, your joystick, and talking an absolutely unreasonable amount of trash. Because nothing quite says friendship like blowing up your buddy's car, watching him limp around the track in abject misery, and then reminding him about it for the next 30 years. And that's what this video is about. Today we're going to be looking at the Commodore 64 games that brought friends and family together, so we can absolutely ruin each other. Let's get started. Nothing quite says sibling rivalry like literally punching each other, and International Karate was built for exactly that. Heavily inspired by the arcade hit Karate Champ, the premise was simple. Give two kids joysticks and let them settle things. This was our Street Fighter. But unlike most fighting games, you weren't wearing down a health bar. Matches were scored on clean hits, and somehow that made the rivalry even worse, because a spectacular flying kick to the head might look great, but those cheap little control taps were just as effective for winning matches, which was absolute fuel for gloating. And fittingly, the rivalry didn't stop on screen. Data East, the makers of Karate Champ, sued Epyx over how similar the game was. After bouncing through the courts, Epyx ultimately won on appeal. So yes, International Karate ended up causing fights both on screen and off. Bruce Lee is an interesting inclusion on this list because technically, it isn't even a multiplayer game. In fact, plenty of us probably had no idea a second player could join in at all. But if you did know, oh, this was pure friendship sabotage. Because in Bruce Lee, the second player controls the green Yammo, one of the enemies whose entire job is making Bruce's life miserable while he collects lanterns. So, this brilliant action puzzler suddenly becomes a harassment simulator. And the real master stroke? The second player can jump in and leave whenever they want. Nothing tests a friendship quite like your buddy deciding to become the green Yammo, just as you're about to make a bunch of perfectly timed jumps. Let's face it, competition doesn't get much more intense than a good game of one-on-one basketball. And this next game absolutely nailed it. In 1984, Electronic Arts gave Commodore 64 owners a masterpiece. Two of the world's best basketball players, personalities intact, battling out on the court. Larry Bird was deadly from outside, Dr. J was a monster in close. Every possession was personal. Getting past your friend's block for a slam dunk felt fantastic, and the trash talk just flowed naturally. Some games let you hide behind teammates or power-ups. One-on-one made sure every loss was entirely your fault. No excuses, no randomness, just you getting beaten. And your friend knew it. M.U.L.E might seem like an odd choice for this list because it starts with such a wholesome premise. Build a colony on the planet Errata with a bunch of cute little creatures while listening to the best theme music in Commodore 64 history. But then things start to change. Resources become scarce. Your best friend starts hoarding the Smith ore. Prices go through the roof. And suddenly, this adorable colony builder has turned into an absolutely savage lesson in capitalism. And after the game, the winner immediately wants to play again. Everyone else, they want to go for a walk. Because M.U.L.E victories don't feel random at all. They feel personal. Pitstop II is a racing classic. Brilliant split screen, real-time pit stops, and races that demand skill, practice, and endurance. Oh, and it's a total friendship destroyer. Pitstop taught us that racing etiquette is a fragile social construct. Races always start with the best intentions. May the best driver win. But then you rub tires in turn 2 and laugh when your friend has to pit early. Bad idea. Suddenly that friend no longer cares about winning. Now, he's entirely focused on making sure you don't finish the race, hunting you down, cutting you off, and trying to wreck your tires. It's full-on vehicular assault. Nobody starts a race expecting conflict. In Pitstop II, war just escalates naturally. Up next at number 5 is another head-to-head fighting game, but this one comes with a twist. In mail-order monsters, you aren't just trying to beat your friend. You're trying to design your friend's worst nightmare. At first, battles are fun, cute even, but then the psychological warfare begins. Oh, Greg's loading up on ranged weapons, is he? Fine, let's see how he likes this muscle-bound tank. And it gets even worse. Sometimes the game lets you take control of another enemy, which means you get to cheap shot your opponent without risking your own monster at all. No consequences, no fairness, just weaponized pettiness. It's constant one-upsmanship, and it's brilliant. Everything about mail-order monsters is crafty and premeditated, and the betrayal starts as soon as the game is loaded. When discussing Commodore 64 memories, it usually isn't long before someone mentions a game from the Epyx game series. Summer games, winter games, world games, and California games defined multiplayer sports for a generation of kids. And the competition started before the first event even began. Picking a country was the first flex. A little Cold War rivalry? Bring it on. Then came the events themselves. Whether it was the high jump, bobsled, hacky sack, or caber toss, competition was fierce, and getting your name onto that leaderboard was everything. And that impossible score your buddy just set? That's not just a score, that's a personal vendetta. And of course there was trash talk, because there was nothing quite like beating a buddy by a couple of inches in the caber toss, and then making him stew through the standings as you stood for the anthem. The games are proof that sabotage isn't a requirement for a friendship testing game. Sometimes all it took was your best friend beating your world record and refusing to shut up about it. Next up is Archon, The Light in the Dark, an early classic released in 1983 by Electronic Arts. At its core, Archon is fantasy chess. You start with a set of pieces and begin moving them toward your opponent. But that's where the similarities end. Chess is civilized. Archon asks whether you can actually back up your strategy with joystick violence. Because unlike in chess, taking a piece in Archon means actually fighting for it. And those battles were legendary. More than 40 years later, I don't remember the rules, board layouts, or strategies. But I do remember hating manticores and banshees with every fiber of my being. And more than that, I remember how much my best friend loved them. Archon wasn't just a strategic competitive game. It was a death match that created lasting emotional scars. The only thing missing was the board flip after a close loss. At first glance, Spy vs. Spy looks like a fun take on a couple of beloved comic strip characters. But after even just a few minutes, that thin veneer gets stripped away. This isn't a multiplayer game. This is psychological warfare wrapped in a Mad Magazine license. You and a friend each control one of the two spies, racing to collect the items you need to escape first. Simple enough, except that's not really the game. The real game is setting traps. You can rig rooms with bombs, spring guns, door traps, and a whole variety of other espionage dick moves. Very quickly, hey, it's that briefcase I need, becomes, oh, you absolute bastard. And that, of course, is immediately followed by your friend laughing at you before stealing your stuff. It's deliciously cruel and wonderfully vindictive. A lot of games allow bad behavior. This game actively rewards it and keeps encouraging you to be worse. Spy vs. Spy wasn't about winning. It was about making sure your friend lost in the funniest way possible. In 1985, Racing Destruction Set was a slot car fever dream. You designed your own cars and tracks, messed with the gravity, and then raced while trying to destroy your opponent. But in reality, it was far more cruel. because only rarely did both racers actually cross the finish line. Much more often, someone got blown up by a mine or wrecked by their opponent's car, leaving them unable to climb hills or build up enough speed to finish at all. And yet, the game went on. Watching your buddy leisurely make their way around the track while you sat stranded at the base of a hill was humiliating in all the worst ways. Until the next race, of course, because then, time for revenge. Time to design a better car, a crueler track, different gravity, more mines. Racing Destruction Set is engineered cruelty, violence and revenge wrapped in a racing game. And it was absolutely glorious. There we have it, folks. 10 games, 10 different ways to test even the strongest friendships, and some of the best shared memories the Commodore 64 ever gave us. These games took competition to ridiculous levels and had millions of us yelling, laughing, trash talking, and occasionally plotting revenge on a Saturday afternoon. And if a joystick got damaged or a disc got frisbeed across the room, well, that was just the price of victory. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have memories of these games or have juicy friendship straining stories of your own, I'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. Hope to see you again.